Hey everyone, back again for another deep dive, and this time we're going exploring the business model of Visa.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, right? I mean, we all use it, but like, how does this giant actually make money?
Right.
What are their big expenses like, and how do they manage to stay ahead of the game in this like crazy, fast-moving world of digital payments?
It's a good question.
So to answer all this, we're going right to the source. Visa's own 10K filings from 2023 and 2024.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Exactly. Now, you might think financial reports are boring, but trust me,
Oh, I know this.
these things are like treasure maps once you know how to read them.
Full of insights.
Exactly. So I was looking through these reports, and one thing that jumped out at me was how Visa describes itself as a network of networks.
Mm.
Okay, what does that even mean? Sounds like something out of Star Trek.
Well, it's not quite as complicated as it sounds. Basically, Visa doesn't issue cards directly to people like us. Instead, they partner with banks and financial institutions all over the world. They're like the local distributors of those familiar Visa cards that we all have.
I see.
Visa's role is to provide the technology and infrastructure that allows all those different cards from all those different banks to work seamlessly at millions of merchants worldwide. Think of it like they've built the global highway for digital payments.
Okay, so they're like the masterminds behind the scenes, making sure that no matter what bank issued your card, it'll work anywhere. Visa's accepted. It's pretty powerful, but how does that translate into like actual money for Visa?
Well, that's where interchange fees come in.
Okay.
Every time you swipe your Visa card, a tiny fee is deducted from the transaction amount.
Right.
This fee is then split between the card issuer, which is your bank,
Mm-hmm.
and Visa. Now, these fees are really small for individual transactions, but when you multiply that by literally billions of Visa transactions happening every single day, you can see how it adds up.
Yeah, small fees, massive scale. It's kind of brilliant when you think about it.
Yeah, it.
But I did notice something else in the 10K that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Visa also makes money from transactions made with cards that aren't even Visa branded.
Yeah.
How does that even work?
Well, in some cases, other payment networks actually use Visa's infrastructure to process their own transactions.
So they're like renting out a lane on that global highway.
Exactly. It's exactly like that. Visa calls these gateway routing services, and they generate a nice stream of data processing revenue for the company.
So they're essentially profiting from their competition.
All right.
That's a pretty savvy business move, if you ask me.
Yeah, pretty smart.
But okay, let's talk big numbers, because these 10Ks reveal some truly staggering revenue figures. We're talking billions, right?
Oh, yeah, big billions. In 2024 alone, Visa raked in a whopping $35.9 billion in revenue.
Wow.
And their international revenue grew by a substantial 14% compared to the previous year. So it really shows their global dominance in the digital payments world.
Yeah, 14% growth. That's incredible. But okay, a business of that magnitude also obviously comes with some major expenses. So what are the biggest costs that Visa has to deal with?
Well, one of the biggest chunks of their expenses goes towards something called client incentives.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about Visa partnering with all those banks and financial institutions? Well, to incentivize them to issue more Visa cards and to push those transaction volumes even higher, Visa offers them a variety of rewards and programs. These can range from cash rebates to marketing support and even things like rewards points for cardholders.
That's
So all those perks and benefits that we love, they come at a cost to Visa.
right, and it's not a small cost either. I mean, I remember seeing in the report that Visa had $9.1 billion
Wow.
in short-term liabilities related to these client incentives as of September 2024. That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, it really shows how much they're investing in nurturing those partnerships with the banks.
Yeah, keeping those banks happy and motivated to push Visa products, because ultimately that means more transactions, which translates into more revenue for everyone.
Exactly.
But it's not just about keeping the banks happy, though, right?
Mm.
Visa also invests heavily in its employees.
Oh, absolutely.
So personnel expenses, things like salaries, benefits, and training,
Mm-hmm.
they make up another major cost driver. And with a global workforce of almost 29,000 employees, that's a significant line item on their balance sheet.
Sure.
It's really interesting, though, how they've even created their own internal Visa University for training and development.
Yeah.
That's a real commitment to investing in their employees and keeping them at the top of their game.
Yeah, they seem to really value their people.
Okay, But let's talk about some of those other big expenses. What else are we looking at here?
Well, professional fees are a big chunk of their budget.
Okay.
This includes legal fees, consulting fees, and all those other external professional services that a company of this size needs.
Right. All those lawyers and consultants, the unsung heroes of the corporate world.
Hmm. Exactly, keeping things running smoothly behind the scenes.
But what about those depreciation and amortization expenses I keep seeing? Can you remind me what amortization means in this context?
Yeah, sure. Amortization is basically the process of spreading out the cost of an asset over its estimated useful life.
Okay.
So imagine Visa invests in a really expensive piece of software for their operations. Instead of expensing the entire cost of that software in the year they buy it, they amortize it, which means they gradually expense it over the years that software is expected to be used.
Got it. So it's like paying off a mortgage on a building, spreading out the cost over many years.
Exactly like that.
And I see the 10K specifically talks about the amortization of acquired intangible assets.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
So intangible assets might sound a bit complicated, but it
Uh-huh.
basically refers to the cost of things like patents, trademarks, and even customer relationships
Okay.
that Visa acquires when they buy other companies.
So like when they bought that cloud-based banking platform, Pismo Holdings, for just under $1 billion?
Exactly. A portion of that billion-dollar purchase price will be amortized over time, reflecting the ongoing value of those assets to Visa.
It's fascinating how those acquisitions impact their financials.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do appreciate that Visa breaks down all these different cost categories in their 10K.
Right.
It really gives you a good understanding of how they're managing their operations.
Yeah, it's good transparency, especially for a company of their size.
All right, so we've talked about how Visa makes that crazy revenue and what their major expenses are.
Yes.
But let's switch gears a bit and think about this from the perspective of like you and me, just regular users of Visa's products and services. What do we actually get out of it? What's their value proposition for us?
Good question. I think at its core, Visa offers consumers and businesses a really powerful trifecta of benefits:
Yeah.
security, convenience, and global acceptance.
I mean, when you think about it, when you pull out your Visa card, you don't really have to worry about whether it will be accepted or not. It just works. Whether you're buying groceries at your local store or souvenirs on vacation, Visa ensures that your transactions go through smoothly.
Yeah, and that's huge. That peace of mind and convenience is super valuable.
Totally. But are they doing anything to make things even better?
Oh, absolutely. Visa is constantly innovating to enhance their services.
Like what?
Well, for example, they have something called the Visa Token Service,
Hmm.
which is designed to make online and mobile payments even more secure.
No.
It replaces your actual 16-digit card number with a unique digital token.
Interesting. So it's like giving the merchant a secret code instead of handing over your actual card information.
Exactly,
Yeah,
which makes it much harder for fraudsters to steal your data.
that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Sounds very high tech.
It is, but they don't stop there. They invest heavily in fraud prevention and risk management systems as well, constantly analyzing data and patterns to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
So they're not just making it easy to pay, they're making sure it's safe to do so. It's a win-win for everyone.
Exactly. And remember, those 29,000 employees we talked about, many of them are working on super advanced technologies like artificial intelligence and data analytics to further enhance security, improve efficiency, and even personalize customer service.
Yeah, it's like a cycle, right?
Yeah.
The more they invest in technology and people, the better their products and services become.
Exactly.
And ultimately, that makes their value proposition even stronger.
Right. It's not just about individuals, though. Visa also provides a ton of value to businesses, both big and small.
Yeah, I can imagine managing payments on a global scale would be a nightmare for businesses. How does Visa help with that?
Well, they offer solutions tailored for different types of businesses, from small shops to giant online retailers. If a business had to manage payments from customers using different currencies and different types of cards, it would be crazy complicated.
Yeah, a logistical nightmare.
Yeah. But Visa streamlines that whole process, handling all the complexities of payment processing so businesses can focus on what they do best, running their companies and serving their customers.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so to recap, Visa offers security, convenience, global acceptance, and they're always innovating to make things even better. Pretty compelling value proposition.
It is.
But here's the big question. In a world overflowing with payment options, from digital wallets to cryptocurrencies,
Yeah.
how does Visa stand out from the crowd? What's their secret sauce? What differentiates them?
That's where things get really interesting. One of Visa's key differentiators is their open loop system.
Okay, what is that?
Now, this is a bit technical, but basically, unlike some of their competitors like American Express, which operate closed loop systems, Visa's open loop allows for much wider acceptance and reach.
Ah,
It's like the difference between a private club and a public park. Visa's open loop system allows them to partner with a massive network of banks and merchants, creating a truly global payments ecosystem.
so it's all about accessibility and scale. The more partners they have, the more places you can use their cards, and that makes the network even more valuable.
You got it.
But what's the technology behind this global payments ecosystem? How do they actually process all those trillions of transactions?
That's where VisaNet comes in. It's their global processing network, and it's a technological marvel.
I can only imagine.
This network can handle tens of thousands of transactions per second, connecting consumers, merchants, and banks all over the world.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's really the invisible engine that powers those seamless and secure payment experiences we talked about.
Wow. They've built this powerful open-loop network powered by this crazy technology called VisaNet. It seems like a winning formula, but here's the question on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
In a world that's rapidly moving towards real-time payments and with the rise of things like national digital currencies, how will Visa adapt and maintain its dominance? That's what I'm really curious about.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in part 2 of our deep dives. Welcome back. Glad you can join us again. So last time we were talking about how Visa is dealing with all the changes happening in digital payments, with those new trends like real-time payments and national digital currencies.
Yeah. It's like we're stepping into some financial sci-fi movie.
Right.
We talked about their open loop system and that crazy powerful VisaNet, their global processing network.
Yeah.
But the financial world's always changing, right?
Yeah.
So how is Visa dealing with all these new trends? What's their strategy for staying ahead?
That's the big question, and Visa is definitely not just sitting around waiting.
Okay, good.
To really understand this, we have to think about the bigger picture. National digital currencies, or CBDCs, they could completely change the entire financial
Oh,
system.
okay. Paradigm shift time.
Exactly. A total paradigm shift. Imagine a world where your central bank, not a commercial bank, issues digital currency directly to you. It's basically digital cash backed by the government. So no more need for bank accounts or physical credit cards.
So instead of using my bank account or a credit card, I just use this digital cash for everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow, that would be a huge change.
It would be massive.
I can barely keep up with all the digital wallets and payment apps we have now.
And for a company like Visa, whose whole business is based on facilitating transactions between banks and merchants, it raises some interesting questions.
Yeah, like what happens to their role as the middleman?
Exactly. If people are using digital cash issued directly by the government, do they even need Visa anymore?
All right. Get what?
That's the challenge and the opportunity for Visa.
Okay, I like that. Challenge and opportunity.
Yeah, they know CBDCs could disrupt their current model, potentially even cut them out completely, but they're not just watching it happen.
Okay, so what are they doing?
They're actively exploring ways to adapt and even use this new technology to their advantage.
So they're leaning into it instead of being afraid of it.
Exactly. They're investing a ton of money in research and development, they're forming partnerships, and they're even participating in pilot programs with central banks all over the world. They're smart enough to see that CBDCs could actually offer some advantages.
Like what?
Well, things like faster transaction speeds and lower costs.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, Visa wants to be at the forefront of this evolution, not left behind.
If you can't beat 'em, join 'em.
Exactly. But okay, let's get into specifics. What steps are they actually taking to position themselves in this new world of digital currencies?
Yeah, good question.
Well, they're tackling it from a few different angles.
Okay.
First, they're working on integrating CBDCs into their existing network. So even if you're paying with a digital yuan or a digital dollar, Visa's technology could still be working behind the scenes.
So they're making their network compatible with these new forms of money.
Exactly, like adding another language to their global translation system for money.
Okay, I like that analogy.
And here's the cool part. They're also figuring out ways to provide extra services on top of CBDCs. Things like fraud prevention, data analytics, and even loyalty programs.
Ah, so even if they're not processing the payments directly, they can still offer all the perks and security that people expect from Visa.
Exactly. It's about using their expertise and infrastructure to find new opportunities in this changing market.
Smart. Very smart.
And they're not stopping there. They're also diving into other innovative payment technologies.
Oh, like what?
Well, they're putting a lot of resources into blockchain technology.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
It has the potential to revolutionize cross-border payments.
How so?
Imagine sending money to someone in another country instantly with very low fees.
Wow, that would be incredible,
Oh,
especially for businesses that work internationally.
exactly. That's the future Visa is working towards. No more waiting days for international transfers and no more huge fees.
Yeah, that would be a game changer. And I bet it would also create a ton of new revenue streams for Visa.
Oh, absolutely. They're also exploring biometrics, like paying with your fingerprint or your face.
Whoa, hold on. Like in the spy movies.
It's already happening. It's all about security and convenience.
Yeah.
And they're using AI for things like fraud detection and personalized financial services, so making banking even smoother and more tailored to you.
The future of payments is going to be wild.
Yeah, it is.
It's a little overwhelming, but exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Visa is determined to be a leader in shaping this future.
Absolutely. One of the big takeaways from our deep dive today is that Visa understands that its success depends on its ability to constantly innovate and adapt.
Right.
They're embracing new technologies and
It's
challenges.
not just about reacting, it's about leading the change.
Exactly. Looking through these 10K filings, I'm also really struck by how much Visa emphasizes corporate responsibility and sustainability.
Yeah, me too. They're not just focused on making money, they actually seem to care about making a positive impact.
Right. And consumers these days are demanding that from companies. They want to support businesses that align with their values.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just talk. They're actually taking action.
Yeah, I see a lot here about their efforts to promote financial inclusion,
Yeah.
helping people access banking and credit
Yeah.
who have traditionally been excluded.
Right. It's about creating a more inclusive financial system.
Yeah, that's really inspiring.
And they're also serious about environmental responsibility.
hmm They've set some pretty aggressive targets for reducing their carbon footprint and promoting sustainable practices.
Yeah, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and it makes good business sense too.
Yeah, consumers and investors are paying attention to these things now.
Yeah, it's not just a nice to have anymore.
It's a must-have.
Exactly. Visa gets that their long-term success depends on operating sustainably and responsibly.
Okay, so to recap, we've covered a lot of ground in this episode, from how Visa makes money to how they're adapting to new technologies.
Yeah.
It's clear that they're a company that's always evolving, always pushing the boundaries of what's possible in payments. But we still need to talk about the competition.
Yes, we can't forget about all the other players in the game.
Right. Who are they up against, and how are they navigating this crazy competitive market? That's what we'll dive into in part 3 of this episode. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our Visa deep dive, and it's time to talk about the competition. Like, who are they up against in this battle for global payments dominance?
Yeah, the competition is definitely heating up.
Right.
You've got those big established players, you've got the agile newcomers, and then you've got some unexpected contenders entering the ring. It's a dynamic market, and Visa needs to stay sharp to maintain its leadership.
So let's break it down. Who are the main rivals that Visa's going up against?
Well, first, you've got the classic rival MasterCard.
Of course.
They operate a very similar open-loop system. They have a global presence, and they're always innovating to capture market share. It's a constant back and forth between these two giants.
It's like Coke and Pepsi, but for payments.
Exactly. They're both household names, but they're always trying to outdo each other with new features and hooks.
But what about those closed-loop systems, like American Express and Discover? They seem to have a different strategy, right?
Yeah, they do. Since they control the entire payment process, from issuing cards to processing transactions, they can offer unique perks and rewards that open-loop networks can't always match.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I've heard about those crazy good travel rewards and exclusive benefits that come with some American Express cards.
Yeah, exactly.
But they don't seem to be accepted as widely as Visa or MasterCard.
Right, that's the trade-off.
Okay.
Closed-loop systems can offer a more premium experience, but they often lack the scale and reach of those open-loop networks.
Okay, that makes sense.
But here's where things get really interesting. We're seeing a whole wave of new players entering the payments world.
Oh, yeah. The fintech disruptors.
Exactly. Those agile, tech-savvy companies that are shaking things up.
Companies like Stripe and Square and PayPal.
Yeah, exactly. They're bringing new ideas and a lot of innovation to the table.
So how are they changing things?
Well, many of them focus on specific niches like online payments, mobile payments, or peer-to-peer transfers.
Okay.
They're using technology to create solutions that are faster, cheaper, and more user-friendly than the traditional ways of doing things.
So they're not necessarily directly competing with Visa, but they're targeting specific parts of the market.
Right.
Okay, so are they a real threat to Visa? Could they, like, take away some of their market share?
That's the big question. And it's really hard to say what the future holds.
Right.
What we do know is that consumers and businesses have more choices than ever before. The lines are blurring between traditional financial institutions and these tech companies. This creates challenges and opportunities for companies like Visa.
Yeah. It's like a whole new world out there, a financial Wild West.
Exactly. Everyone's trying to find their place in this rapidly changing landscape.
So in all this, how is Visa fighting to stay on top?
Well, one of their biggest strengths is their commitment to innovation. They're constantly investing in new technologies and forming partnerships to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, we talked about their work with blockchain, biometrics, and AI. They're definitely not afraid to experiment and push the boundaries.
Exactly. And they're also leveraging their massive global network and processing power to offer users around the world a seamless and secure experience. That's a huge advantage that's hard for competitors to match.
So they've built this incredible system,
Yeah,
and they're constantly making it better.
exactly.
But even with all that, they're still facing challenges, right?
Yeah.
We talk about national digital currencies, increased regulation, and the constant threat of disruption from those fintech startups.
Right. All of those are big challenges, and Visa needs to address them strategically.
And it's a tough environment out there.
It is. But here's the thing. Visa has been through this before. They faced challenges and adapted to new technologies throughout their history.
Yeah, they have a good track record.
Right. They know how to innovate and reinvent themselves to stay relevant in a changing world.
So they're not just a one-hit wonder. They're in it for the long haul.
Exactly. They understand that you have to keep moving forward, you have to anticipate trends, and you have to adapt. It's a constant race.
So what does all this mean for the average person? How does this competition affect us?
Yeah.
The people who are actually using these payment systems every day.
Well, I think it means we're living in a really exciting time for payments. We have more choices than ever before, and this competition is leading to incredible innovation, faster transactions, better security, and more personalized services. The future of payments is going to be shaped by this ongoing competition and the drive to constantly innovate.
It's pretty amazing to watch all this unfold.
It is. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Visa, what's the one big idea you want our listeners to take away?
Yeah, good question.
I think it's this. In a world that's constantly changing, the companies that embrace innovation, adapt to new realities, and focus on creating value for their customers are the ones that will succeed. And Visa has a long history of doing all those things.
That's a great point. It shows that even giants can be nimble and that embracing change is how you stay ahead of the game.
Absolutely.
Well said. So on that note, we'll wrap up for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Visa, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the business world.